Hello there. Hey, so a decade ago, the housing market was completely different. It was not what it is today by any means. And your decision to buy or rent varied. And that's what we're going to go over today. First, I'm going to go over buying, the pros of buying, and then the cons of buying, and then I'll the pros of renting, and then the cons of renting, and the financial implications, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Throughout this live stream, go ahead and ask any questions. I'll keep monitoring the questions and see if we can help answer anything you may have weighing on your mind. Of course, if you're watching this after this live stream, go ahead and put it in the comment section, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Now, you might be wondering, like, well, who am I to speak on that? For those of you that don't know me, I'm Veronica Edwards. I've been in real estate since 2011. I owned my own real estate company, which included hundreds of rentals. I did property management for many, many years. So I feel I could give a lot of value and insight and weigh the pros and cons of buying versus renting, especially if something comes up compared to some of the things I have seen throughout my career. So again, hope to provide a lot of value in this live stream. And don't forget to comment if there's anything you would like to ask. I have my notes down here, so that's why I'm going to put my glasses back on. So one of the pros of buying right off the bat is you build equity. I've had people come to me and they did not understand what equity is. So I just want to take a quick moment and explain what that is. In a nutshell, if you were to have purchased a home a few years ago and say you owe $500,000 on it still, and you believe you could sell your home for $600,000, well, you potentially have $100,000 worth of equity. That's what that is. So when you buy a home, you have a great chance of building equity, kind of like a forced savings account, I like to say. Another thing with buying is you get stable payments, especially when you have a fixed rate mortgage. Of course, if you pay cash, you don't have to worry about that. All you did is just bought an investment that's more than likely going to give you some money on your return of your investment. Just got to give it some time. And a little tip I had heard years ago, and at first I was like, what? I don't understand. This doesn't make sense. But it does. Think about it. You make your money when you buy a property on your investment when you buy, not when you go to sell. If you bought wrong, good luck. So when you buy, that's why you want to get with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Get with a good real estate agent that knows the area, knows the market, knows the potential of what your property would be worth 5, 10 years or so. And a lot of people I get also, they're like, it doesn't matter. This is my forever home. I don't plan on moving. Well, surprise, surprise. Unfortunately, people end up moving. It's sometimes a year or two later, it's like, oh, I'm so sad. I really thought I love this home. I thought it was going to be my forever home. And something comes up. They get married, they get divorced, kids move in, kids they thought weren't going to move out. I've had families that parents got sick and they had to go back home to another state to be with them. Job losses, job transfer, there's all kinds of things. So no matter what, always buy with the intention of selling it someday. Even if you're 95 and you're like, I'm not going to sell it. Well, wouldn't you like to leave your kids something, a good investment, not stuck with something, or the charity or whatever you plan on doing with the property when you're gone? Make sure when you buy the property, buy right. That is the best time, not when you try to sell it. And another pro of buying is the property appreciation. Potentially the property will increase in value. I buy and sell properties for whatever reason every few years. I always say, this is going to be it. But I think I always find something a little better. And I have never lost money on any of my properties. And in the beginning, before I got into real estate, I didn't know what I was doing. My very first home was 26, and it was from a for sale by owner. I learned a lot on that deal, but guess what? 5 years later, when I sold it, I still made some money. So it was great. If I would have bought better, I would have made more money. Also, when you buy or own your property, you get tax benefits. You can make deductions on your mortgage interest in your property taxes. So you get to write some of that off. Creative control, freedom to modify or renovate your property. For example, I bought this condo and I wanted to enclose one of the dining rooms. I don't need a few eating spaces. And that's what I'm sitting in now. I had a contractor come and remodel my condo, and we enclosed the dining room. And now it's my office / YouTube studio, which I absolutely love. If I was renting a place, I could assure you I would not have wanted to spend the money to have this done, even if the landlord would allow me to do it. So you get some creative. You get to be a little more creative when you own your properties, which is really nice. Oh, well, hello, Facebook user. Thanks for joining. Let's see. So, oh, where am I? And another neat thing, I do so many deals a year. You get the sense of ownership. People really like the sense of emotional satisfaction and a sense of stability. You don't have to worry about if somebody's going to come in and say, hey, I'm selling the property, you got to get out. Even though you have a lease, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Back in the boom, people were actually being foreclosed on. They were paying rent. The owners weren't telling them. And then they would have like a day to get out of their home because it was being foreclosed on. Because the bank didn't know, there was a tenant. It was just this whole crazy thing. So when you own, you have that sense of stability, right? So let's see. All right. So those are some of the pros of buying. There are plenty more, but I just wanted to give you a nice little outline. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat. So pros, we have some cons. Cons of buying is the upfront cost. This is the struggle for many people. And there's some help. So when I go ahead and say this, don't just totally write off buying a property. You will need a down payment unless certain situations, maybe a VA loan. But even with that said, you still have closing costs, you have inspection fees, you'll have moving costs, which you would have, I know, whether you're buying or renting. So you do have some upfront costs. Again, there's some ways to get around that. It's not always 20% down. Maybe we can get the seller to help pay some closing costs. There's some things to do, but at the bare minimum, you're going to have the home inspected. You're going to need a few $100 for that. So there are some upfront costs. And then also the lender's going to want to see you have a few months reserve. They don't want you to move into a property and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, they have no money left to pay their first mortgage payment. So there are some upfront costs. So you'll need some savings. Again, a professional real estate agent would be more than happy to help go over that with you, and or preferred lender. Pick out a good lender. If you need any, just let me know. I can help with either, no matter what state you're in. When you buy, you do have maintenance responsibility, cost of repairs, and keeping up on everything falls on the homeowner. When you rent, of course, the landlord is responsible for the bulk of it. However, like if you're playing ball in the house and a ball goes through the window, the landlord's not going to pay for that. But if, say, there's an old crusty water heater and it finally explodes and leaks all over, the landlord will come in. It would be his responsibility to replace that, or a broken fridge. Which brings me to, there are some ways to lessen these upkeeps and repair. Don't forget, if you were to purchase a townhome or a condo, that's why I think I keep moving. I keep getting less maintenance. I like more freedom. But if you share this responsibility now I'm only responsible for anything inside my walls. I no longer have to worry about a garage door opener or the gate or the roof or the exterior or the grass, bushes, anything. I don't have to worry about any of that. I absolutely love it. The townhome I had before, I paid a little more in HOA. I didn't have to wear out the roof or painting the exterior or cutting the grass. When I had a single family home, I had to worry about everything. Now you could buy brand new and you'll don't have to worry about the roof or anything for a real long time, especially with the home warranty. So there are ways to lessen the maintenance responsibility. Again, that's something somebody can go over with you if that is a concern of yours. Cons of buying, you do have property taxes and insurance, which is an ongoing expense that you will never get rid of. Now, I wrote less flexibility. With that, at the end of the day, I'm trying to come up with some cons to be fair with both buying and renting. And it's not just because I'm a real estate agent. I don't care where you're watching. I want this to be very valuable for you. Yes, maintenance fee. Life hasn't cost a while. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, so I wrote less flexibility. It's more challenging to relocate for a job or personal reasons. You can't just say, oh, well, my lease runs out in 2 months. I'll just move then. But you can do things like you could possibly rent your home out or quickly try and throw it on the market and sell it. Let a family member live in it. Maybe you can afford this while you get moved for your new job and have this as an investment to sell later. It can be a little more challenging, but there are ways around it. And there's one other con, a market risk, potential for property values to decrease. That's pretty slim. Like I said, I move around. I've moved quite a bit throughout my life. Every few years, if I wait, I probably have more equity. But I've always done pretty good. I've always made something more than enough. Even, what was that one? I had a townhome. It was just horrible. I put a tenant in there, all kinds of stuff. It was bad, but I still made a little bit, even though the tenant tore the place up. So sorry if you're a tenant. They're not always great, but there are wonderful tenants too. But anyways, all my properties, I made something, but you do have the chance of the value decreasing. Again, really keep in mind, if you ever plan on selling, you make your money when you buy your property. Okay, so that's the pros and cons of buying. Now I'm going to go over pros of renting. Renting, it's flexibility. Easier to move for jobs, relationships, or personal preference. Again, maybe you're not sure, you're coming to a new town, you want to check it out, see if you can get, like here, such Florida and probably throughout most, you have to do at least 6 months in one day, or there's a hospitality tax. It's the same as if you're staying in a hotel, how they got to tax you. It's not cheap. It's like 12.5% the last I checked. So maybe you do like a 6 month, 1 day or 7 month lease. Okay. And then you can, once lease done, move. Okay. If you want to stay, you run the risk of the landlord renewing, but at a higher fee. Leases are great because it locks you in at that rate. Now you know, at least for that time period. You do have lower initial costs. There's no down payment. Normally only a security deposit and first month's rent. Some landlords I know try to get last month rent too, which gets a little steep for most people renting. That's like 3 times. But it's still cheaper than $80,000 down for a house or $100,000, right? It's come up with like $5,000 compared to $100,000. Could be a lot more easier the costs are a lot lower. No maintenance hassle. Again, as long as you're not doing it, the landlord is ideally responsible for the repairs. Will they always do it? Honestly, no. That's why I'd really talk to the landlord before moving in, get a good feel for them. See, you can usually tell if you think they're going to be a little shady or not. Because once you're in there, I've had some crazy landlords and I would fire them. I would not do their properties. Don't want to be known as a slumlord, but some of them refused to fix anything. And it was just a dump. These poor people. Or even better, if you can go through a property management company, there's less emotional detachment. It's their job to have the property maintained, to get the owners to do what they're supposed to do. So there should be less hassle. Sometimes we'd have tenants that would just fix it themselves. They just didn't want anyone coming in their property. I'm like, that's up to you. No property tax burdens. Renters don't pay property taxes directly. And I say directly because your lease time's coming up and it's time for renewal. And oftentimes the landlords, the owners of these properties would say, I'm going to go ahead and raise the rent $50 a month or something because my taxes and insurance went up. So they're passing that along. It has to make sense for the owner, even if they pay cash for the property, but if they have a mortgage on it or something, then it makes sense. They have to, keep up with the increasing times. They're more than likely, they're never going to keep it not raised at all. Sometimes tenants would ask to do a 2-year lease. Now you're both risking you're stuck with each other for 2 years. But for the tenant, you don't have to worry about the rent increase if they didn't put that in the 2-year lease. It was just the same amount of rent. Another pro of renting is no market risk. Renters are not affected by property value fluctuations. Once you're in that property, you're good. You go to move out, you may be shocked after a few years to find out rents have really gone up. Who knows, right? Fixed rent amount, predictable monthly expenses, though subject to increase. Again, like at the end of your lease, there's a good chance if you want to renew that they're going to raise your rent. If you're a good tenant, you didn't really cause a lot of problems throughout the year, didn't hear from you, a good landlord's not going to want to lose you. They will maybe wait a year or raise it very little. But eventually, they're going to have to raise it more than likely to offset their costs that keep going up. Cons of renting: no equity building, right? Payments do not build personal equity. Remember, we went over pros of buying is you can build equity in your home, like a little savings account. Variable rent can increase over time and is subject to the landlord's discretion. No tax benefit. You cannot deduct rent payments on your taxes. You don't get any type of tax break there. Restrictions on customization, limited ability to renovate, even to paint. If you wanted to paint like dark blue walls and then you go to move out, the landlord wants it back to how it looked or better. So now you got to, fix up everything when you go to move. Unless you if you get it in writing, sometimes they'll be okay, like fine, you can have the dark blue walls or whatever. But you're very limited in how you can renovate or redo your rental. Instability, potential for eviction or non-renewal of the lease. If you're going to be evicted, you more than likely know why, and you get like a 30-day notice and several notices, and it's probably most common is due to lack of paying your rent. So that should not catch you off guard. If you were to stop paying your mortgage, basically it's the same thing as eviction. They just call it a foreclosure. And then you can get the chance that landlord might be like, no, I'm not renewing your lease. I'm selling the property. Didn't care for you as a tenant. My brother wants to move in there, my kid, something. So it's never guaranteed. It's sad, but it's never guaranteed. And with the con of renting, you get no long-term ROI. Renting offers no return on your investment. Like a lot of people say, it's just money out the window. And I personally would never go back to renting. Like I said, I've bought throughout, since 26, and I've always made something. Before then, I would rent, I'll walk away. I'd be lucky if I got my security deposit back. Because again, it's not that I was a bad tenant. It's just some landlords are like, they just nitpick and find ways to keep it. And now you're going to take them to court for $500 or $1,000 or whatever. It's going to be eaten up in attorney fees. It's really, really difficult. And unfortunately, some landlords know that and take advantage of that. Some are good. Some are good. The ones I have when I own my property management company, I would not work for them unless they were good. And if they honestly, fairly should give it back, we would give it back. If, we need to take something out because there's some, stains on the carpet or something, then, we would deduct for that. So now there's some financial implications to both renting and buying. Buying involves a long-term financial commitment versus the short-term of renting. Again, you don't want to buy something and then try and sell it a year or two later because you'll have what's called capital gain taxes. You'll have to pay taxes on the profit you made. I think a lot of that came in when people started buying homes, flipping them, making a couple $100,000. Well, now they got to pay taxes on it unless they let it sit for a year or two, usually over 2 years. Investment perspective, owning a home can be a form of forced savings and investment. Like I was saying, The longer you have it, oftentimes the more you have like a little savings account. It's called your equity, and it's a wonderful thing. Hey, whoever Facebook user. Hello. Hey, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the video. When I make these live streams, I'm always hoping I'm providing a lot of value. Let's see. And opportunity costs. Some say money tied up in a home could be invested elsewhere. I guess a lot of it just depends what's important to you. I personally invest in property. I always think it's the best investment. It's, again, not just because I'm in real estate, but I see it all the time. I do a ton of deals every year. I used to own my own company. I used to have hundreds of landlords where I'd help manage their property throughout the years, and I see it's just the best return. So I feel it's the best return, but it is tied up in your property. You can always refinance. You don't have to necessarily sell. You can do a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit. There's ways to get that money out, so you're not absolutely stuck. If you really want to invest it somewhere else, there are ways to do that. Again, a reputable lender can help with that, or a real estate agent. So in conclusion, I would love to hear what you all thought about if you prefer renting or buying. If you want to comment below this video in the replay, that's fine too. I'd still love to hear it. I know everybody has pros and cons, and sometimes I just feel maybe a first-time home buyer, whether young or old, they just don't realize that you can buy. It's not impossible. Even if your credit's not the best, you can still get a home and start building some equity and have your little forced savings account too. And let's see. Also, maybe talk to a financial advisor too. I wanted to mention too, and get some more personalized advice if you like. Again, I'm always happy to help with anything I can do. And that's about it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and comment below, and I look forward to seeing you on my next live stream.